The space shuttle glided smoothly through the atmosphere of the alien planet Zarella, glowing under a pale green sun. From the window, Lieutenant Marcus Hale could see the grand towers of the Zarellian Empire reaching into the sky like crystal spires. Their architecture looked like something from a dream, graceful, glowing, and impossibly tall. Marcus adjusted his collar and tried not to look nervous. This was his first time on an alien world as a human representative. Earth had joined the Galactic Accord only 2 years ago, and many alien species still didn't trust humans. Some saw them as wild, emotional, and unpredictable. That made him the perfect candidate, because he was all those things. As the shuttle landed, he stood up tall. His mission was simple: attend the royal court, represent humanity, and not cause any trouble. But Marcus had a strange feeling that trouble was already waiting for him. Inside the palace, the air smelled of flowers and minerals. Light danced across the walls in slow-moving patterns, giving the illusion that the building was alive. Tall alien guards with silver skins stood still like statues. Their eyes followed Marcus as he walked through the halls, guided by a silent royal servant. At last, he was brought into the Hall of Stars, the throne room of the Zyrelian royal family. It was silent. High above, the ceiling showed a moving image of the galaxy, a soft swirl of stars and colors, and there she was, Princess Thalira. She sat upon a raised platform, her long silver-blue dress flowing around her like liquid light. Her skin shimmered with hints of purple, and her hair was white as snow. Her large eyes were like 2 galaxies spinning in place, reflecting everything and nothing. Marcus was not prepared. She was beautiful, but not just in appearance. She had presence, power. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. He couldn't help it. He stared. A low hum went through the room. Several alien nobles exchanged glances, their psychic thoughts probably buzzing with judgment. But Marcus didn't care. He was caught in the moment. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear, soft, and full of curiosity. "Why do you stare at me like that, human?" The words echoed across the hall. Marcus blinked. His brain scrambled to form an answer. He wasn't trying to be rude. He wasn't even trying to stare, but how could he explain it? Before he could speak, Thalira tilted her head slightly. Her expression didn't show anger. Instead, it showed something unexpected: interest. "Is there something you see in me that others do not?" Marcus opened his mouth. No words came out. The room was dead silent. Finally, he gave the most honest answer he could think of. "I'm just ... trying to understand you." A few nobles raised their eyebrows. One whispered something in a language Marcus didn't understand, but Thalira smiled, just a little. A human who seeks understanding, that is rare. That night, Marcus was given a room in the palace. It was filled with strange furniture, soft glowing walls, and a bed that adjusted to his body temperature. He couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the princess's question. Why had he stared? Was it because she was beautiful? Maybe, but it wasn't just that. She looked calm on the outside, but in her eyes, he had seen something else. A flicker of something very human. Loneliness. The next day, Marcus was summoned to the royal garden, found Thalira walking slowly between floating flowers. The garden defied gravity. Plants hovered in the air, changing colors as she passed. She didn't turn when he arrived. "Do all humans look at royalty the way you did?" Marcus stood beside her. "No, some bow, some freeze. I guess I'm just ... different." Thalira stopped and looked at him again, her gaze direct. "Different is not always welcome here." Marcus gave a small smile. "It's not always welcome on Earth either. But different can be good. It can be strong." She studied him for a moment. "You speak with emotion, you show your feelings." Marcus nodded. "That's what being human is." Thalira touched a flower. "Zyrilians are trained to control emotion, to hide it. Feelings are considered distractions from duty. Do you agree with that?" Marcus asked. She didn't answer right away. "I was taught never to question the Empire. But after meeting you ... double quotes." She paused. "I begin to wonder." The days passed. Marcus was asked to attend meetings, ceremonies, and quiet discussions about Earth's role in the Accord. But what interested him most were the private talks he had with Thalira. She asked him about art, music, family. She wanted to understand why humans cried when they were happy, why they laughed during pain, why they fought for love. And Marcus learned to. He learned how Zyrelians used psychic links to communicate without words, how they trained from birth to stay calm in all situations, how emotions were considered wild forces to be feared. Still, Thalira kept returning to that first moment. "What did you see when you looked at me?" One evening, under the stars, Marcus finally answered, "I saw someone pretending to be perfect, when maybe you just wanted to be real." Thalira said nothing for a long time, then she whispered, "You are not like the others." But not everyone was pleased with their growing bond. In the shadows of the palace, voices were rising. Alien nobles began to whisper that the human was too bold, too close. Some believed he was corrupting the princess with dangerous ideas, human ideas. The empress herself, distant and powerful, had begun to watch. Trouble was coming. But for now, under a glowing sky filled with alien stars, a human and an alien princess stood side by side, strangers from different worlds, beginning to understand something more powerful than fear, more meaningful than politics. They were beginning to understand each other, and that could change everything. End of part 1. The golden sun of Zarella rose slowly over the shining towers of the palace, casting a soft, warm light across the gardens. Birds with crystal-like wings floated gently through the air, singing tunes that sounded almost like music. Marcus Hale sat on a stone bench, reading from a small human tablet. He was trying to stay quiet, unnoticed, and out of trouble, but deep inside, he knew that was no longer possible. Princess Thalira had changed things. Ever since their first meeting, she had been different. She now asked more questions, looked deeper into people's eyes, and didn't walk with the cold confidence she once had. There was something softer about her now, something human. That morning, Thalira arrived at the garden again, without guards or royal assistants. Her long silver dress shimmered with every step. Marcus stood up, nodding politely. "Princess," he said with respect. "You do not have to call me that when we are alone," she said gently. "Call me Thalira." He hesitated. "Are you sure?" She smiled slightly. "Do I not have the right to decide what I am called?" He laughed softly. "All right then, Thalira, would you like to sit?" She joined him on the bench, keeping her hands folded neatly. There was silence between them for a moment. Then she asked a question that surprised him. "Do you believe love makes people weak?" Marcus blinked. "No, I think love gives people strength, even if it makes them sad or angry. Yes, that's part of being human. We don't run from feelings, we face them." Thalira looked down at her hands. "In my world, strong emotions are dangerous. We are told they lead to mistakes." Marcus looked at her carefully. "But you've felt them, haven't you?" Her eyes met his. "Since I met you." Over the next few days, Thalira began spending more time with Marcus. They met in hidden gardens, walked along the edge of the palace lake, and even visited the royal archives together. There, Thalira showed Marcus ancient Xyrillian writings that spoke of emotion, passion, and dreams the Empire had long pushed aside. "These texts are kept hidden," she said softly, "not destroyed." "Why?" "Because maybe someone hoped they'd be remembered," Marcus replied. One day, during a rain of glowing crystal droplets, something the Xyrillians called a starful Thalira asked him to join her on the skybridge. It was a tall glass path that stretched over the city. From there, the entire Xyrillian capital sparkled beneath them like a galaxy turned upside down. Thalira stood at the edge, the wind brushing her silver hair. "Tell me about Earth," she said. Marcus smiled. "It's messy, loud, people shout and laugh. They paint, they dance. They fall in love even when they know it might hurt." Thalira turned to him. "Why do they risk so much?" "Because life without feeling isn't life at all." She was silent for a moment, then spoke quietly. "I want to see it." Marcus frowned. "Earth, that would be difficult. I am a princess. If I request a visit as part of a diplomatic exchange, the council must allow it." He looked at her with wide eyes. "You'd do that?" Thalira nodded. "I need to know if what I feel is real. I need to see your world through your eyes." A week later, the request was approved. The Empress didn't speak a word about it, but the look in her eyes during the meeting was enough. Cold, watchful, dangerous. Marcus sensed it. Something was changing. Still, preparations were made. A royal vessel, small but powerful, was assigned to the mission. Thalira and Marcus were the only two on board, accompanied only by one silent robotic pilot. As the ship launched into hyperspace, Thalira stood beside Marcus and looked out into the stars. "I've been to many planets," she said, "but never one that frightens me." "Earth will welcome you," Marcus replied, "but it will challenge you too." She nodded. "Good, I wish to be challenged." Earth was nothing like Zarella. The moment they stepped onto the ground near Geneva City, a cool breeze rushed across Thalira's face. She closed her eyes, breathing in air that smelled like trees and smoke. Around her were buildings of stone and metal, not floating glass towers. People walked quickly, talked loudly, and showed their feelings on their faces. Thalira was overwhelmed, but she didn't back away. They visited parks, museums, and markets. Thalira was fascinated by everything, especially children. She watched a little girl cry after dropping her toy. The mother bent down, kissed her head, and whispered soft words. The child smiled again. They do not hide pain, Thalira said. They do not fear showing love. Marcus nodded. It's not always easy, but it's honest. That evening, they attended a human concert. It was nothing formal, just a man with a guitar, singing a song about loss and hope. Thalira sat perfectly still. As the notes filled the air, something strange happened. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Marcus said nothing. He simply reached out, gently placed his hand over hers, and let her feel. This, she whispered, is what I've been missing. But news travels fast. The next day, as they visited a human art gallery, a message came through Marcus's communicator. A formal order from the Zyrelian court. Return immediately. Worse still, the Empress had called for mind sanctification, a rare and dangerous process that erased strong emotional influence from high-ranking royals. They want to take away what I've learned, Thalira said, her voice trembling for the first time. They want to silence the part of me that is human. Marcus stood up. We won't let that happen. What can we do, Marcus? I am one voice. You are just one man. He took her hand. Sometimes, one voice is all it takes. As they returned to Zyrella, Marcus began to prepare. He knew this wouldn't be easy. The royal court was strict, the Empress was powerful, but Earth had taught him to stand for what matters, and Thalira had given him something worth fighting for. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was a defender of something precious: curiosity, courage, connection. The princess who once stood alone was no longer afraid, and the human who once stared in silence now had something to say. Together, they were no longer just part of a story. They were about to change one. End of part 2. The royal starship broke through the Zyrella atmosphere as silence filled the cabin. Princess Thalira sat straight, her hands clenched together. Marcus stood beside her, watching the glowing towers grow larger in the distance. Neither of them spoke. They both knew this was no ordinary return. The Empress had summoned Thalira for mind sanctification, a rare and feared mental cleansing. It was used only on royals who had been corrupted by emotion, rebellion, or forbidden ideas. And now it was being used on her. As they landed at the palace, the guards waited in a line. Their silver armor shined in the pale sunlight. Marcus could feel their eyes on him, not with curiosity but with warning. He stepped out first, followed closely by Thalira. The gates opened, but not with honor. No music, no greetings, just silence. Inside, the Hall of Stars looked darker than before, and sitting at the far end, on a crystal throne, was the Empress Thalira's mother. Her presence was cold and powerful. Her skin shimmered like ice, and her eyes glowed faintly. She raised her hand. Princess Thalira, you have returned. I have, mother. The Empress did not smile. You left this world as my daughter. You return. Different. Thalira bowed her head. Yes, I have changed. I am no longer afraid to feel. A quiet murmur spread through the hall. The nobles looked at each other with shock. Some were confused, others angry. Marcus took a step forward. She hasn't changed for the worse. She's grown. The Empress looked at him sharply. And you are the reason. Marcus nodded. Yes, I showed her humanity, but she made her own choice. The Empress stood. The law is clear. Any royal who risks the Empire's purity must be cleansed. You have been touched by human emotion. You must be sanctified. Thalira raised her voice. I refuse. Gasps echoed across the hall. I will not give up what I have found. Emotion is not weakness. It is truth. You trained me to obey, but you never taught me to feel. Now that I do, I will not go back. The Empress frowned. Then you must prove that your feelings are worthy of preservation. Marcus stepped in again. How the Empress turned toward the nobles and spoke in a deep, commanding voice. Let the princess face the trial of truth. The trial of truth was ancient. No longer used in modern times. It was once a test for royal heirs who challenged the throne's values. A test not of strength but of mind, soul, and spirit. Thalira would be placed inside a memory sphere, where she would face her own fears, emotions, and memories. If she failed, if she gave in to fear, pain, or anger, the sanctification would proceed. If she passed, her choices would be accepted by law. But there was one rule: she must enter alone. Marcus tried to protest. You can't let her face this without support. The Empress looked at him coldly. She claims emotion makes her strong. Let her prove it. Thalira turned to Marcus, her voice calm. Let me go. I have to face this, not just for me, but for all those like me. He touched her hand gently. Then I'll be right here. Waiting, the memory sphere was a glowing dome floating in the middle of the palace garden. It pulsed softly like a beating heart. Thalira stepped forward. The sphere opened, and she entered. Then, it closed. Inside, time bent. She found herself standing in a white void. Slowly shapes appeared, memories, shadows, fears. First came her childhood. She saw herself, just a small girl watching her mother train warriors. Her young self cried after falling during a balance lesson. The Empress had only said, "Tears solve nothing. Don't cry," the memory whispered. "Hide your pain." Thalira stepped forward. "No, I will not hide anymore." The image vanished. Then came the garden where she had first spoken to Marcus. His face appeared, calm and kind. "Why do you stare at me like that, human?" the memory echoed. She smiled, "Because you saw me." The scene faded, but then the sphere grew dark. A storm began. Loud voices surrounded her. "You are weak. Emotions are dangerous. You betray your people. You are not fit to rule." She covered her ears. The pressure grew. Her chest felt heavy. She dropped to her knees. Suddenly, a shadow appeared before her, tall and cold. "Her mother, you shame your bloodline." Thalira looked up. "No, I honor it, by becoming more than you ever allowed. You will destroy the empire, then let it fall and rise again stronger." The shadow raised its hand, but Thalira stood tall. "I am not afraid. I am not broken. I choose this path." The light around her flared. The voices vanished, and in that moment Thalira passed the trial. Outside, Marcus waited with the nobles and guards. The Empress stood without expression. The sphere opened. Thalira stepped out, and she was glowing, not just from the light, but from something within. Her eyes shone bright, her steps were strong. The Empress stepped forward. "You passed." Thalira nodded. "I will not be silenced." For the first time in years, the Empress seemed uncertain. She turned to the nobles. "Let it be known, the princess has faced the truth. She will not be cleansed. Her emotions will remain." A few nobles bowed respectfully. Some walked out in protest. Marcus ran to Thalira's side. "You did it." She looked at him. "No, we did it." That night, the stars above Zarella sparkled like never before. In the royal balcony garden, Marcus and Thalira stood side by side. "What now?" he asked. "Now," she said. "We change things." He laughed. "One emotion at a time." She smiled. "Exactly." End of part 3. The wind swept across the high palace towers, cold and sharp like the whispers spreading through Zarella's royal court. Princess Thalira had passed the trial of truth, but peace did not follow. In the days after her victory, many nobles and high commanders grew restless. They whispered in secret meetings. Some feared the princess's new beliefs. Others were angry that a human and outsider had been part of her change. The Empress remained quiet, but her silence was heavy, like a storm, waiting to break. Thalira stood in her private chambers, staring out at the capital below. The lights of the city shimmered like stars on water. Marcus stood nearby, arms crossed, thinking hard. "You've shaken their world," Marcus said. "I didn't mean to frighten them," Thalira replied, "but I won't pretend anymore." He nodded. "You're not alone. There are others who feel like you. People who are tired of hiding." Thalira turned toward him. "Then we must find them, talk to them, build something new." They started visiting outer regions of the empire, quiet research outposts, mining colonies, and agricultural domes. These places were far from the royal towers, where life was harder and rules were stricter. To the people there, the royal family was distant, cold, almost myth. But Thalira arrived not as a ruler but as someone who wanted to listen, and they listened back. In the farming colony of Neuro 7, a young teacher told Thalira, "We're told not to ask too many questions, but the children, they're curious. I want them to keep their curiosity." In a border city, a guard whispered to Marcus, "I lost my sister to mind sanctification. She laughed too much, felt too deeply." Everywhere they went, stories poured out, stories of fear, silence, and hope. Thalira kept a record of it all. And her message spread. Back at the palace, the Empress watched through silent screens. "She is planting seeds," said General Vila, a tall, sharp-eyed commander, "and they are growing fast." "I see that," the Empress replied. "It cannot go on. What do you command?" The Empress stood. Her voice was cold. "Break the roots before they grow deeper." That night, a public message from the Empress was broadcast to all corners of the empire. Her glowing image appeared across every screen. "My people," she began, "our traditions are what keep us strong, but dangerous voices now rise from within, voices that invite chaos. Emotion, uncontrolled, weakens the mind, and weakness threatens all. This movement led by my daughter is not blessed by the throne. It is a path to ruin. Let it be known. Any who follow her path will be watched, and those who resist correction will face judgment. It was a warning, a cold one, and it worked. For a moment, silence returned. In her study, Thalira stood frozen. Marcus read the message again, his jaw tight. She just declared you a threat. She's scared, Thalira said quietly. She knows she's losing the people, but she's powerful, and now she'll try to crush anything you've built. Thalira looked up. Then we must move faster. Do you have a plan? She nodded. I've been working on one. The next morning, Thalira called a secret meeting, not in the palace but in an old abandoned observatory near the planet's polar rings, a quiet, forgotten place. There, she gathered her allies scientists, teachers, former royal officers, and even a few council members who had secretly supported her during the trial. Marcus stood beside her as she spoke. This is not just about me, it's about the future of our people, a future where truth is not punished, where emotion is not a disease. One elder scientist raised a concern. Princess, we believe in your words, but the Empress controls the network, the fleets, and the council. How can we stand against her? Thalira stepped forward, not with weapons, but with voices, with light, with truth. She opened a small case inside. It was a memory crystal. This contains every story we've gathered, from every corner of the Empire, painful truths, silenced voices. We will broadcast them, all at once, not just to Zyrella but to every world. Another advisor asked, how the central network is locked. Only the Empress can. We won't go through the palace, Marcus said, smiling. We'll go above it. He pointed to the sky. There's an old communications array on the moon station, Kirill. It was used during the expansion wars. Still strong, still connected to every relay tower. The group fell silent. Then slowly, one by one, they nodded, that the plan began. While the Empress prepared to tighten control, Thalira and her team quietly traveled to Kirill Station. The ancient station floated silently above the planet, dusty, forgotten, but still alive. Inside, the walls creaked, lights flickered, but the core systems still functioned. Marcus worked on the controls. Thalira prepared the message, her voice, her truth. Once I press this, Marcus said, your message goes everywhere. No way to stop it. Thalira placed the crystal into the slot, then let them see who I am. He pressed the button. Across the Empire, screens flickered. People stopped in markets, in schools, on starships, and Thalira's face appeared. No crown, no jewels, just her honest, steady, and real. To the people of Zyrella she began, I am Princess Thalira. You know my name but perhaps not my heart. I was taught that emotions make us weak, that questions are dangerous. But I have learned those are lies. I have seen your pain, your courage, your dreams. I do not speak to take power. I speak so that you may find your own. You are not machines, you are not shadows, you are alive. Feel it, speak it, share it, let the light in. For a moment, the entire Empire was still. Then something changed. A teacher in Narrow 7 opened her classroom door and let the students paint without rules. A scientist in the outer rings removed the locks from her research journals and shared her work. A soldier removed his helmet, looked at the stars, and finally cried, across the stars. A spark turned into a fire. Back in the palace, the Empress stood before the screen. She did not blink. She leaves me no choice, she whispered. General Villock stepped forward. Do we activate the command protocol? The Empress paused, then spoke. Yes, bring her back, alive if possible. But stop her. But Thalira was already ready, Dad. Ships launched from the royal hangars. Alarms began to ring at Kirill Station. Marcus looked at the radar. They're coming. Then let them, Thalira said. She turned toward the window, looking down at her world. This time, we don't run. End of part 4. The warning lights turned red inside Kirill Station. A deep alarm echoed through the old metal halls. Marcus stared at the radar screen for warships ... coming fast. 8 to 15 minutes. Princess Thalira stood calmly beside him, her hands folded. Behind her back, her long silver cape slightly blowing from the ventilation draft. So this is it, Marcus said quietly. They're coming to take you. Thalira nodded. I knew they would, but her eyes were not afraid. She had already made her choice, in the last few days. Thalira's voice had reached millions, her message of truth, feeling, and change had spread across the Empire like wildfire. Some rejected it, others welcomed it, but most importantly they heard it. Now she was no longer just a princess, she had become a symbol, a new voice for a new future. And that was what the Empress feared most. The screen lit up again. A call request. From the royal flagship. It's her, Marcus whispered. Your mother. Thalira took a deep breath. Then she answered. The image of the Empress appeared calm, but cold as ever. Her golden eyes narrowed. You leave me no choice, daughter, the Empress said. You broke sacred laws. You disobeyed royal command. You spread rebellion. Thalira remained calm. I shared the truth. I listened to the people. That's not rebellion. That's leadership. You were born to rule with order, not emotion, the Empress snapped. But you've brought disorder and chaos. No, Thalira said quietly. I brought light to the shadows you created. The Empress's voice grew sharper. Surrender now. Return to the palace. We will speak in private, so you can silence me. Thalira said. I'm sorry, mother. I won't go back to silence. Then she ended the call. 10 minutes until the warships arrived. Marcus turned to her. We should escape while we can. We'll be hunted. Yes, but we'll be free. But Thalira shook her head. Running won't fix anything. She walked over to a nearby console and activated a holographic map of the Empire. Small glowing dots blinked on planets, space stations, and colonies. Each dot was a message receiver that had replayed her voice. Look, she said. They're listening. They're wondering what happens next. If I run now, they'll believe the Empress was right, that I'm weak, that I was wrong to speak. I need to stand here. Let them see me choose something bigger than fear. Marcus looked at her with deep respect. You've changed everything, Thalira. Not yet, she said. But I'm about to. The warships arrived above the station. Inside the main hall of Kirel, Thalira activated the emergency beacon, broadcasting her final message live across the Empire. Her voice was steady, her words simple. This may be my last message. If you're hearing this, know that I do not regret anything I've done. I've chosen truth over comfort, emotion over coldness, love over fear. I will not fight with weapons. I will not hide behind walls. If they take me, let them. But no, this ideas cannot be erased. You are not machines. You are not property. You are alive. And when you feel you are strong, she ended the message. Then she walked to the landing bay and waited. The soldiers arrived firstly. Guards in black armor. Marcus stood protectively beside her, but Thalira raised her hand. No weapons, she said. No fear. The soldiers paused. They expected resistance. But she offered none. General Velox himself stepped forward, his silver badge gleaming. Princess Talida, he said. By royal order, you are under arrest for high disobedience and treason. Thalira nodded. I understand. He hesitated. She wasn't afraid. She didn't beg. She only stood tall, proud, peaceful. Do you resist? Velox asked. No, she said. But understand this, you don't arrest a person. You arrest a wave. And waves don't stop moving. Velox said nothing, then he nodded. And the guards took her into custody, back on zero. The Empress waited. Thalira was brought to the throne room. This time not in royal clothes, but a simple white robe. She stood before her mother, and all the nobles watched. You disappoint me, the Empress said. No, Thalira replied. I challenge you. You break tradition. Some traditions must be broken if they harm instead of help. You speak like a human. I speak like myself. The Empress raised her hand. Then you will be removed from the royal line. You will live in exile, and your name will be erased from royal records. The nobles gasped. Marcus, standing quietly behind the guards, clenched his fists. But Thalira smiled softly. You can erase my name, but not my voice. You can take my title, but not the hope I've planted. And I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Then something unexpected happened. One noble stepped forward. A woman from the council. She lowered her head. I support the princess, she said. The Empress turned sharply. What? Then another stepped forward. Then a third. Soon, 10 nobles stood behind Thalira, then 20. Then half the chamber. Marcus's eyes widened. They're choosing her. The Empress's hand trembled slightly. You would follow her? One council member replied. Yes, because she leads with heart. That day, everything changed. The Empress did not lose her throne, but she lost her silence. For the first time in history, the Royal Council voted to create a second leadership seat, not for war or control, but for emotional and ethical guidance, and they gave it to Thalira, a princess of feeling, a voice of the people, not a ruler, but a light. Later, on a quiet night, Thalira and Marcus stood in the garden. Stars twinkled above. You stood alone, and you still won, Marcus said. I was never alone, she replied. You stood with me. He looked at her. So, Why did you stare at me like that, Thalira? She smiled. Because I saw something in you, something I needed to become. And with that, the Empire began to heal. Not through force, but through truth. The human had stared into the eyes of a princess, and the princess had stared into the soul of a human. Together, they changed the stars. The end.